So how do you see the future of NATO in circumstances where US President Donald Trump is seriously questioning the level of American engagement in the alliance and expressing dissatisfaction with what he describes as the insufficient financial contribution of other NATO members to collective security? Thank you.
Well, again, also thank you for that question. When you look at the short term, of course, there are discussions, I know. One, of course, is about Iran and how can we make sure that allies in Europe, when it comes to the next phase, will be able to help with the situation, for example, in the Strait of Hormuz. Next phase.
Is NATO now panicking as America's critical missile stockpiles continue to shrink amid fears that the escalating Iran crisis could rapidly drain US military reserves even further? Is NATO Chief Mark Rutte now openly wing President Donald Trump as concerns grow that US THAAD and Patriot missile reserves are falling to dangerously low levels? Is America's powerful Tomahawk missile arsenal now being pushed toward a major war drain by the Iran conflict, while European NATO states grow increasingly fearful of a rising Russian threat? Has NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte declared himself extremely optimistic about the future of NATO because of President Donald Trump and his pressure campaign on allies to boost defense spending?
Well, Prime Minister Spajic, dear Mickey, thank you for the warm welcome here today, and it is a great pleasure to join you in Podgorica. It's now almost 9 years since Montenegro's flag was first raised at NATO headquarters. And ever since, you have been a valued member of our transatlantic family. Montenegro has 31 friends and allies by its side to ensure this country stays safe and secure. For example, Greek and Italian aircraft continue to protect your airspace. But Montenegro is also an exporter of security, deploying troops to NATO's forward land forces in Latvia and Bulgaria, helping to deter and defend against any aggression. And you contribute to KFOR, NATO's peacekeeping mission in Kosovo. Montenegro promotes peace and stability across the Western Balkans, a region of great and also of strategic importance for NATO. And we know that security cannot be taken for granted. It is something we all work for, and we do this every day. NATO supports constructive cooperation across the region. We know there are actors trying to pull the Western Balkans backwards. They want to disrupt progress and destabilize the region. NATO is committed to keep the troubles of the past firmly in the past. We will call out and counter any malign activities on NATO territory. We need strong societies defended by strong militaries, because we live in a more dangerous world. Russia continues to wage a war of aggression against Ukraine. China is becoming more assertive, and our southern neighborhood is volatile. NATO allies must invest more in defense, increase defense production, and strengthen support for Ukraine. I welcome that Montenegro is already investing more than 2% of its GDP on defense, and I count on you to keep up the momentum. NATO is committed to enhance the transatlantic industrial base so it can support and sustain credible deterrence in defense. And we must do more for Ukraine. I'm grateful for Montenegro's support to Ukraine, including military equipment and contributions to NATO's comprehensive assistance package and Statute Trust Fund, and also Pearl. The NATO summit in Ankara is now only a few weeks away. And there we will show that we are delivering security now for 1 billion people on both sides of the Atlantic. Prime Minister Spajic, dear Mickey, thank you for your strong commitment to NATO and your friendship. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we invite Prime Minister Spajic to take the floor.
With due respect to our dear colleagues from NATO, I'll switch to the local language because I think that's also very important that we deliver the message Pa prvo bih da se zahvalim našem...
First of all, I would like to thank our dear friend Mark, who is a great friend of Montenegro. The entire team who is here today. We had a very constructive meeting, which perhaps lasted a little bit longer than envisaged, and we apologize to our colleagues from the media because of that, but I think it was a very productive meeting. Also, you mentioned yourself at the meeting that Montenegro is one of your, let's say, easier destinations, where you can talk about positive topics, and we can also discuss some good things we expect in the future and which are already taking place. First of all, I would like to note that the capacities of our military have been significantly strengthened in the past years, and the citizens have been able to see that. According to Eurobarometer, the latest survey of the European Commission, which was published 7 days ago, the trust in our military is at the historical maximum of 88%. And just to illustrate, to compare these figures were far below 50% for so many years. And now we have this level of trust of the practically entire nation, of all the ethnical identitarian groups. All of them stand behind the military of Montenegro and behind its mission. And that's a major deal. This is something that we have to be so proud of, because the most severe enemy is the internal enemy, the enemy from within. When we are cohesive, when we act together, when we have entire population, entire state behind us, then we are the strongest. And that's when we can contribute the most to everybody else. And that is why I'm saying that we have already contributed and we have invested a lot into our military. The investments are also at their inception, nevertheless. I think we've done a lot of good things, but there are yet many good things that have to take place in the future. With the US, we are going to have an interstate agreement already this June, and we are hoping that on this occasion we will be able to work on critical infrastructure, namely the infrastructure which is dual use, both for civilian and military use. We will also have some investment implemented together with the Canadians, with the Germans, with some other nations. So on and so forth. So great days are ahead of the military of Montenegro, and thereby I believe we will be much more productive and much better NATO member. Montenegro stands ready, of course, in the context of the Balkans, and has always been ready. Montenegro is Western Balkans zoomed in. We have small populations. We don't have ethnic majority here. We are the only country perhaps in Europe without ethnic majority, but that's not our weakness, that's our strength. And from this position, we can contribute significantly in the Western Balkans to de-escalating the situation, to appeasing the situation by connecting each other and by better understanding each other. And you also mentioned our mission in KFOR, in Kosovo. We also have our people deployed in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in other capacities, in other roles. We have people elsewhere, and we are really doing our best to be a constructive factor, which will be a cohesive factor. So this doesn't have to do with NATO, but through Berlin process, we will have also very significant role already in October, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to bring the Western Balkans closer to the European Union and to the West. So I believe that Montenegro and the Western Balkans in the future will be sending out much nicer news than perhaps when you used to be Prime Minister or in some previous periods of time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you to Prime Minister. Now we are moving on to media questions. Due to the tight agenda of the Secretary General and Prime Minister, we are limited by time constrictions, so we will be able to accommodate 2 questions for each. Please introduce yourselves and tell us who the question is for. Good afternoon, Bojana from TV Montenegro. Question for Mr. Rutte. You recently said that certain NATO members, including Montenegro, are considering to allow for their bases for interventions in the Middle East. What does this concretely mean? Question for Mr. Spajic relating to European integration. The working group should start working tomorrow relating to the accession agreement. Do you think they will do their work in time, and whether Montenegro's position will be clear? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. The basing is more figuratively. But the point I want to make more generally, without going into what it exactly means for Montenegro or other countries, because we don't want to make others too much informed and too wise. But what I wanted to make is this point, that Montenegro, when it comes to NATO, is one of the staunchest allies. And when it comes to the bilateral relationship with the United States, Montenegro is seen by the United States, I know this from my American friends, as a staunch ally of the United States within NATO, but also bilaterally. That's the point I wanted to make.
Što se tiče evropskih integracija,
As far as the European integration is concerned, the ad hoc group has started also its work on the membership of Montenegro. It won't be easy. Everything that is good, it does not come easily. We are here, we are ready to work, and we are looking forward to all the steps which are remaining until our full membership. Any other questions?
Televizija Vijesti. I have a question for Mr. Rutte. I'm not standing up because of the cameras. So how do you see the future of NATO in circumstances where US President Donald Trump is seriously questioning the level of American engagement in the alliance and expressing dissatisfaction with what he describes as the insufficient financial contribution of other NATO members to collective security? Thank you.
Well, again, also thank you for that question. When you look at the short term, of course, there are discussions, I know. One, of course, is about Iran and how can we make sure that allies in Europe, when it comes to the next phase, will be able to help with the situation, for example, in the Strait of Hormuz. Next phase. This is exactly what the Americans asked for. And what we are seeing now is the French and the Brits leading this initiative, 40 countries coming together again today. And what I am seeing at the moment is that there is a massive amount of activity now to pre-position, not of course in the strait itself, but close to theater, critical capabilities necessary for that next phase. So that's one issue in the short term. And here we clearly see that the Europeans have heard the American president and are responding. When it comes to the more fundamental question of NATO's future, I'm extremely optimistic. And I'm extremely optimistic because of President Trump. Because let's look at what happened last year. We have seen the whole of the alliance now on 2%, including the bigger economies like Canada, Spain, Belgium and Italy, who were all not yet reaching the 2% at the beginning of last year. And I think the re-election of President Trump played a large role here. And then we had the summit in The Hague, where collectively we decided to move to the 5% defense spending, including 3.5% on core defense. And this is something which President Trump has been pushing for many years, and he has been successful now at the beginning of a second term to get this done. And it is not only crucial to equalize our defense spending with the US, but also because we need to defend ourselves against our adversaries, particularly, of course, Russia. But let's not be naive about other forces in the world which might be able to attack us somewhere in the future. So we have to stand ready for all of that, and that means massive investments in our defense. So I think you could argue that NATO is extremely strong at the moment, is now implementing all these decisions from The Hague. We are going into the Ankara summit, which will very much focus, of course, on Ukraine, keeping them as strong as possible, but also on getting this money now translated into the critical capabilities we need to develop. That means also developing our defense industrial base, which is great, but not producing enough, not in the US, not in Europe. This is a joint problem we are facing and which we have to work on together with our defense industries on both sides of the Atlantic. And that will be one of the main issues we will discuss in Ankara. So I am optimistic.